Let's explore the concept of anger and its potential for both good and harm. While anger can be justifiable in certain circumstances, such as protecting loved ones or reacting against sin, it is important to note that anger should be used sparingly and unrighteous anger should be avoided. Factors like the intensity of anger, its cause, and how we treat our anger are important considerations. Continually feeding and perpetuating anger, especially through media outlets, can lead to destructive outcomes. Ultimately, while anger itself is not seen as inherently sinful, it is portrayed as a potential breeding ground for sin. Let's consider a distinction between righteous anger and unrighteous anger, with the latter being considered sinful. Righteous anger is self-controlled and does not involve cursing, screaming, raging, or flying off the handle. It is focused on addressing actual sin or wrongdoing and does not spiral into self-pity, despair, or withdrawal from people. Unrighteous anger, on the other hand, arises from rogue destructive human motives and deceptions. It is often prolonged, harbored, or nursed. Oftentimes it is expressed in ways that are harmful, disrespectful, or sinful. It lacks self-control and may involve cursing, screaming, or other destructive behaviors. Unrighteous anger does not focus on addressing actual sin, but rather driven by personal grievances or obsessions. It is important to note that anger itself is morally neutral, but it can easily lead to sin if not managed properly. The key difference between anger and wrath is that wrath expresses itself in destructive actions, while anger can be managed and calmed down in some cases. One example of how anger can become destructive is through the story of Cain and Abel. Let's explore the story of Cain and Abel as an example of the destructive nature of anger. Cain and Abel were the first two sons of Adam and Eve. Cain was a farmer, while Abel was a skilled shepherd who took care of the family's animals. One day, Cain and Abel made sacrifices to the Lord to worship and thank Him. Cain brought some of the produce from the land while Abel brought the firstborn of his sheep. God showed favor upon Abel's sacrifice because it was an offering that came from the best of what Abel had to give. This made Cain very angry and jealous. Cain lured his brother Abel into the fields and killed him with a rock. The Lord called to Cain asking what happened, and after Cain lies about killing his brother, God punishes Cain. The story of Cain and Abel is a famous Bible story that is commonly associated with the story of brothers, obedience, and disobedience of God's instructions and the implications of murder. Although society largely acknowledges that anger can be justifiable in circumstances such as protecting loved ones or reacting against sin, it is important for anger to be used sparingly and for unrighteous anger to be avoided. It is wise to be mindful of the intensity of your anger, the cause of anger, be it sinful or personal preferences, and how we treat our anger. Continually feeding and perpetuating anger, especially through media outlets, can lead to a skewed vision of the world and potentially destructive outcomes. Ultimately, while anger itself is not seen as inherently sinful, it is portrayed as a potential breeding ground for sin. While Aristotle and some Christians argue that anger can be beneficial when directed at proper targets and controlled, the Stoics reject anger altogether, considering it disruptive to inner tranquility and rational thinking. Seneca, a Stoic philosopher, criticizes Aristotle's claim and asserts that anger is not helpful as it does not listen to reason. In the context of warfare, Marine First Sergeant William Baudet emphasizes the importance of controlling anger for better outcomes. Overall, while anger may have its occasional uses, there is a general consensus that it has the potential to spiral out of control and lead to regrettable actions and significant bloodshed throughout history. From Nero using anger to persecute Christians to Cain's murder of Abel fueled by rage, it is clear that anger has led to terrible crimes against humanity. Ultimately, Anger is seen as a double-edged sword that can be both good and bad depending on how it is managed and expressed. While some, like Aristotle, believe that anger can be beneficial when directed towards the right targets and in appropriate amounts, others, like the Stoics, consider anger to be useless and dangerous, something to be banished completely. The destructive nature of anger can be observed throughout history, in personal lives, and especially in online behavior, where it has the power to destroy relationships, tolerance, empathy, and compassion. With the aid of technology, anger can now be amplified and spread on a larger scale than ever before. Thank you for watching. As always, subscribe, like, hit the notification button and comment below on your take.